Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com, and this is a service of diabloincgamers.com. I am your host, Flux, and joining me this week is...
Ellie.
Ellie?
Yes.
Ellie. the smallest big intro ever. This is our News Attack podcast, our weekly feature that we've done last about 6 weeks ago. But there's been zero news of any kind, so we haven't missed anything, except for, everything. We've both been busy with other things. I just put a new computer together the last couple of days, and this is my first podcast on the new computer, which means it'll likely crash and burn in about 5 minutes from now to re-record everything.
As long as you can stay online still.
Yeah, I couldn't do that earlier either. As part of my new computer, I've been obviously installing everything again the last couple of days, including Diablo 3, and that took me forever to download the beta last night. It was 16 hours or something, and that is making me kind of wonder about, people have been discussing forever, are you going to get the hard copy, the digital, go to the store and actually buy a copy of the game, or get the digital download? And I am, as well as many other people, have said, well, digital download is quick and easy, and no fuss, no muss, right?
Yeah, apparently, but not so.
Yeah, and if you look at the Blizzard, the Battle.net tech support forums for Diablo 3, there's just umpteen threads. Can't install, launcher problems, Agent EXE, can't get Win 7 working, etc. And I couldn't play it for about the last 3 weeks on my Win XP computer when the new launcher broke that completely, and none of the workarounds worked for me. And now I have Windows 7, and everything's updated, and all the latest drivers, etc., and I still couldn't get it to work. I had to do all kinds of workarounds and run things as administrator and delete Battle.net folders and stuff. And, of course, it's a beta test, and that's kind of what beta tests are for, right? Tech problems. But all the same, it doesn't seem like the beta... I had zero tech problems in the beta months ago. I had no problem getting it downloaded and, speedy and playing, etc. And it seems like the last patch or two, we've just seen many, many problems and tech support issues. And generally, that's kind of the opposite of how beta tests work, whereas, they start off choppy and they get progressively smoother. And it seems like Blizzard, at least the Battle.net functions, are not holding up as well or improving as we might have hoped. Are you having any doubts or worries about the stability of Battle.net when we launch here, Ellie?
I haven't run into any technical problems, but the past week I've noticed Battle.net going down a few times. But that
do you think? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but that's Battle.net. That's not any technical problems between my machine and the game.
Do you think that might have to do with the fact that we finally have massive amounts of Diablo 3 beta invites going out? 275,000 new invites.
Well, they did say to expect that there may be problems with connectivity because of the influx of hundreds of thousands of new players.
You said influx.
Yeah.
That's funny, 'cause it's like my online name.
Oh, dear.
Did you get that joke? I was pretty clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
So, were you glad to see? Finally, we've been bitching about the number, Remember a few weeks ago, Blizzard had some contest. It's like, we have 8 beta keys for you, It's like, wow.
Yeah.
8 whole keys, huh? And, this is like the same day that, the next 840,000 World of Warcraft Panda beta keys went out.
We were thinking, surely 8, that's got to be some sort of error, but it wasn't. That was how many they were releasing. So the 275,000 was a real shot in the arm for us.
Yeah, that was the first. I think that probably... I'd say maybe doubled the total number of beta testers. I mean, they don't really give us numbers on these things, but they had a bunch of giveaways, but they were, with various gaming sites. But I don't think I ever saw more than 100 or 500, and it takes an awful lot of those to get up to 100,000, much less 275,000.
Well, this must be their big push to see what they can handle.
I certainly hope so. They're scaling up. I was playing some today once I finally got the beta downloaded, and I didn't have any problems creating games or playing.
I did a couple hours ago. No, it was probably about midnight, and it's 4 a.m. now, so I had a few problems then. I couldn't get on. I had to wait about half hour, and then Battle.net came back up.
Well, there was a game queue, or Battle.net just wasn't working?
I can't remember what the message was, but I wasn't in-game. I was actually just went to connect, and it said cannot connect to Battle.net. And you
tried again, and eventually it worked?
Yeah, I tried about half a dozen times right there and then, and then I came back half hour later, and I was fine. I was on straight away. And
it's all fun and games in the beta, but, obviously we're all thinking about May 15th, and I guess we'll find out when that happens.
Yep, we don't have any servers in Europe yet, so that's going to be untested totally.
Bold new territory coming launch day. Speaking of servers in Europe, they just got news a couple days ago that they've updated their terms of service for Battle.net, talking about the global play options, where you can play in the US or the UK or other servers around the world. And you'd talked in the past, Ellie, about thinking about getting 2 copies of the game, so you could play one in the US and one in the UK. And it seems like now you'll be able to just have 1 copy and play on multiple servers.
Yeah, I mean, that was so I could trade on the auction house, wasn't it? Having 1 copy in Europe so I could trade the items that I found in Europe, but because the auction house was region locked, I would have, if I wanted to play in America and then trade my stuff, I would have to have a separate game. So I don't really know how that's changed now. I
don't think that's the case. I think you just log on to whatever server and you have a separate account on each server with, of course, tied to real money in that region. But you don't need multiple copies of the game to do that, unless you want to log on to 2 different accounts on the same server.
So I've got my account, and I've got a Demon Hunter that I play on the US and, say, a Witch Doctor on Europe. How does this affect the real money auction house? Can I, if I find stuff with the Demon Hunter and put it into the shared stash, so the Witch Doctor can access it?
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
You can't share anything from the US server to the European server or vice versa.
Okay.
Everything's completely on each individual server.
So my Demon Hunter can trade on the auction house in the US, and my Witch Doctor can trade on the auction house in Europe on the 1 account.
They'll be separate accounts entirely. You have an account on the US server and an account on the European server.
Right.
And it's like they're 2 different people that don't even know each other. There's no connection between them in any way. But as far as we know.
It's 1 copy of the game.
That's what they've been saying. We've been assuming that. The one thing that seemed good, because we only get 10 characters per account, people were saying, I can just have an account on US West and an account on US East, and I'll get 10 characters on each, and you can't interact between them, but if you want to try out different builds, you would need to delete characters to do it. But that seems like a free lunch, and Bobby don't serve free lunch. So I'm really, this whole tease today, it's like more details coming soon about global play. I'm wondering if there'll be a price tag on these more details.
But this does encourage the game to be more global and people to continue playing more because they've got access to more of their friends to play with. It doesn't separate them so much. I mean, the people that we speak to online through the sites, some are in America, some are in Europe.
The people on this podcast are some in America, some in Europe.
We would either have to buy 2 copies of the game, or we would just say, I'm in Europe, I'll just buy the Europe copy, so you and I wouldn't play together. Well, we will.
That's not the case in D3. That was the case in StarCraft. You had to get the European copy and a US copy. But apparently in D3, at least from what they've told us, although they've said that they're going to reveal more details. And as you know, Bobby don't serve free lunch.
No, but this makes it completely much more global, don't you think?
Ideally, this would be great, but they have all these. You can transfer characters between realms in World of Warcraft, and it just costs you $20. So, and you need 2 copies of StarCraft to play on 2 different servers. I'm certainly hope that Diablo 3 stays this way, but as the saying goes, don't mistake hope for a plan.
If we can play freely between all the different realms with the different people, it means that we're going to trade more, doesn't it? Obviously not between the regions, but if we're playing
on each region.
Yeah, if we play for longer durations, months and months and years, you're going to do a lot more trading than if maybe you only had access to play with a few of your European friends. Maybe your lifespan in Diablo 3 didn't last as long because you weren't as free to play with who you want, unless you went and bought another copy of the game.
Theoretically, but if you have to buy 2 copies of the game and trade more, that's,
Yeah.
even better for their financial reasons. But it's all just hypothetical at this point, and we'll get more details soon. And I think we're probably not going to like them, and you think that maybe we will.
What does soon mean, I wonder? I've heard that before.
The eternal Blizzard fan question. Segueing neatly from that topic to the He Death of the Universe, a site reader by the name of Varquynne, who's done a few cool features for us in the past, put together a few weeks ago. He actually watched a video of a playthrough of the entire beta run, a character from level 0 to level 9, and he took a note of every single item that was dropped and who dropped it and where it was dropped and made these charts from it. And he posted a little infographic about that with cool pie charts and graphs and stuff. And people thought it was cool, and I was shocked to hear he didn't have beta access. He made that actually watching somebody else play. And so I replied, when I replied to his email before I posted the article that he sent in, I said, hey, do you want access? We can give you some. And apparently other people also saw that and said, dude, you should have access. So he was able to play on someone else's account, and he made a new one and made it much more, this whole interactive thing in this online program I'd never seen before, but it was really cool. And you could click through all the different tables and like have little sliders, and you could see how much gold dropped in every single area and how many items and what monster dropped them and how much from barrels. Did you poke through that and enjoy it, Ellie? You said you were going to make a video to put on this podcast of that.
Yeah, I did. I tried to think how much work that must have gone into that. It's an incredible resource. I wonder if he'll do the same for the retail version.
The entire game.
Well, normal maybe.
But yeah, you wonder how many, I mean, just the playthrough takes, 70, 80, 90 minutes, depending on how fast you rush. And it had to take him at least double that to watch it on a video, to pause it, to enter in his little spreadsheet, 20 gold from, a zombie in the old Tristram or whatever. And then start playing again till the next drop, make a note. I would think it must have taken him many times as long as the playthrough, and then the whole game will take how many, many times as long as the beta. He should get like a scholarship, like a grant from the government to fund this research.
I wonder if that would be useful to people who are going to use the auction house, because it doesn't actually name the particular items that he got. It just says what type of drop he got from what type of monster or barrel, doesn't it? It doesn't actually say what the item was.
Well, but that's random, so it wouldn't really be that informative, would it? You just want to know where you're going to get more items, and then you hope you get lucky on those drops. And obviously, as you get higher levels, you get higher level items. I mean, you look at something like D2, where people found that pit runs were this really good thing, and the pit's a dungeon in Act 1, and it's just a cave, and you would think that would just be an easy low-level area, but the idiosyncrasies of the game, of the levels and assignments and such. And that was an area that could drop almost the highest level items in the game, even though it was in Act 1 and was quite easy. So that became very popular to do runs through, just because it was kind of, out of the curve of reward. And so I'm sure we'll get things like that in Diablo 3, where people will find this stuff, and maybe if someone makes as much detail as Varquynne did on this charts, we will know exactly where and which level has the most barrels to drop the most gold for your gold running for your auction fees, that kind of stuff.
Perhaps when he's got the retail, he won't have as much time on his hand as he obviously did when he first started this, because he didn't even have beta access. He might not be interested in doing it, but it's definitely worth having a playthrough. Like
we just saw a thing that was in our forum recently where a bunch of players went through and looked at every skill in the game and rated them all 1 to 5, and in terms of how cool they thought they were and how useful. And, a bunch of guys in the forums put this into a big spreadsheet, and, it averages out the values, and you can see the most popular and least popular skills in the game, and, the average rating per skill per class, this kind of stuff. And I just reminded of that, as you just said. Is anyone going to do this in June, when they could just go play the game instead?
Probably not as many people. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the forums, people gathering information and presenting it in different ways, and I think when they've got the retail version, they just won't have the time or the inclination to do it.
At least not initially. I think eventually people write these really long, detailed strategy guides and, break down all the figures and numbers and like to plan their builds. And it's just fun to analyze data. Some people like stats, some people like programming, and it's just they'll find ways to do it. And I enjoy reading their work. I'm not gonna do it myself probably, but it can be very informative and interesting.
Yeah, I'll put the URL up on the YouTube video of this podcast so people can find those things, because they're well worth the read, even if you are on the beta or not on the beta.
Next topic, we're going to get to a little more on the beta, as you say. One thing that was kind of amusing about the beta was there was a forum post by one of the Blizzard community managers I'd never heard of before, named Vaeflare, Vaeflare, however you pronounce that. Vaeflare?
That would do.
Why do all the community manager names have at least as many vowels as consonants? They're always like IOKIOZROAAAEO.
It's because they have to get through legal, and they're not left with much by the time they're got down the list of the names that they pick, and then they get turned down. Yeah, every word means, goat penis and Urdu or something, and they have to change it around. So you just throw a bunch of letters together and hope that gets through. They seem very vowel intensive, though. I don't know. Maybe it's just my eyes reading. It makes them hard to pronounce, because vowels can be pronounced so many different ways in English. Anyway, this guy Vaeflare, who I'd never seen before, made this long post. Somebody said it was when they'd first announced this reveal feature. We're going to talk about that in a moment, and it's all this kind of viral marketing, and post about this on Facebook and tweet about it, and we'll unlock a new feature every 10%.
And it was just this very, like, used car salesman kind of tone of voice. This is awesome. Think how much fun. When you tell your friends, you guys can help us work to unlock Diablo 3 and see new features. And there was a whole bunch of blue posts that day. I wasn't going to post news about it. And I ended up sending the link to you and a few other friends via, send instant messengers. And everybody just, messaged back. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit reading this, that kind of thing. So I just ended up making a news post. So in the news post, I was like, he just wanted to share some interesting marketing. I didn't get all, like, snarky or whatever, which is, out of character for me, obviously.
It was a tame news post, because I was looking forward to seeing what you were going to write.
And that one, I had about 8 drafts on it, because I'm like, I don't want to be all snarky and sound like an asshole. And, it kind of spoke for itself, really. Just, here's the presentation, and what do you guys think? Be a little sarcastic about it or whatever. And as you said, people in the comments were a lot snarkier than I would have been.
Yeah.
Some people didn't really pick up on it, but it did have a bit of a hard sell feel to it, eh?
Yeah, it was. I've never seen a post like it from Blizzard, actually. It did, like you say, use car salesman. It came on a bit heavy. It was a bit
press releasey,
Yeah, it was uncomfortable.
It felt like a PR release. Like he had just moved from the PR department and was just chatting up the new features. It felt like you were buying a stereo system and they were trying to upsell you on the extended warranty or something. It just felt very artificial, which I guess is kind of a compliment to Bashiak and the other guys, in that obviously they're serving the same purpose. They're trying to promote the game and convince us that it's awesome and wonderful and defending whatever features are currently in it. And yet they seem like real people, more or less. This one really felt like PR marketing, not conversation. Well, and we have a link to this in the news post about this. So obviously, when you missed it, to have a chance to read it. Try not to eat before you do so, by the way.
But as you say, you hadn't seen the guy's or the girl's name before, so perhaps they're just finding their feet on how to talk to the community without. Maybe they come from just behind the scenes PR, and this is their first flurry into dealing with the public, and so that's why the post came off a bit like a PR spiel.
Yeah, maybe that's what they want to do. There were a couple of other posts by the same person afterwards, yeah. They were the same kind of tone. They weren't as relentless, but it didn't feel like a PR robot, at least. It felt like here's a person trying to be a little overly hyping. So maybe that was his big burst of energy at the start, and he's been worn down by the grind and by assholes like us critiquing it already. Maybe.
Oh, it's a thankless task, isn't it, for them, really? Never mind.
And then some asshole records a podcast and talks about them and makes fun of their name spelling.
Well, I'm
glad we didn't do that.
That's what they get paid the big bucks for, so there you go.
Yes. And they get to play Diablo 3 before we do, so, screw them. So, Ellie, we have seen recently a lot of reveal features. Blizzard is finally kicking into motion some presentation of Diablo 3. Are you excited?
Yes, I am. No, I'm not. That's a lie.
Are you more excited than you were 6 weeks ago?
About the reveal site or about anticipation of D3?
Yes. Both. Everything. Well, you're obviously overwhelmed with excitement.
I am.
So they put up the first April 5th, I believe it was. The reveal page went live, and we were like, "Wow, finally some promotion." We've been complaining. The Diablo community on a whole has sort of been grumbling forever that we don't get any love. There's hardly there's 2 Diablo panels at BlizzCon and 17 WoW panels, that kind of thing. And obviously WoW's been paying the bills and keeping the lights on and stuff, but it does seem like they've taken a long time to start really promoting Diablo 3. When will we get our Mr. T and Chuck Norris commercials?
Oh God, I hope not.
Yeah, me too, actually. The first feature went up on the whole reveal thing went live April 5th, and then on April 10th, they put up a developer diary, which featured Jay Wilson, Christian Leitner, and Jason Regier.
Is it right? Raiger.
Regier. I'm pretty sure they said it on the video. We should know this, shouldn't we? Anyway, they were all talking. The interview was recorded all the way back in I thought it was January. People were like, really? Why are we getting this video from 16 months ago? And they primarily talked about facial hair, as best I recall.
Yeah, the first one was.
That was back before the whole Diabeard.
Diabeard.
Pronunciation's hard. Diableard. Diableardio. I don't know. Nothing quite works. So that was the first video, and it was a little anticlimactic. There wasn't much game information. They were talking about, we're hoping to get to the internal alpha pretty soon. And then on April 12th, just a couple days later, they put up Part 2, which is a little preview of the Book of Cain. And we've only seen about 7,000 previews of the Book of Cain so far, so that didn't seem like it was too huge an excitement.
No, I've got that book anyway, so it wasn't much of a treat.
Have you read the whole thing?
I've read quite a bit of it, actually. I think it's well worth the purchase price. I think it's about £12 in the UK.
Is it on your coffee table or the back of your toilet?
It's on my table here in the lounge where I am sat now, reclining on my velvet pillow.
And you flip through it and try not to get the chocolate from the bonbons on the pages?
I don't touch it with anything on my fingers, toast or anything.
Do you have those tongs they use, like for ancient Gutenberg Bibles and stuff? You turn the pages with a big spatula?
White gloves?
Yes, of course. It's in a glass case mounted on the wall. So that was the Book of Cain preview. That was the 20%. And then the 30% was on April 14th, and that was another video, which was only, I believe, 12 months old at this point, with the same three guys talking.
And they were apparently in that one on the home stretch.
Yeah, they were just about to start the internal alpha test, which was almost a little more than a year ago, I guess, at this point. And they were still talking about hopefully getting it released into 2011. And that obviously didn't quite work out.
Shame.
And the fourth feature, the 40%, just came out today, actually. And they are all excited. Internal alpha testing is about to begin, which basically means, from what they said on the video, they're going to give everybody in the company gets a chance to play the full game of Diablo 3. And obviously they want feedback and they want comments. And Jay and the other two guys were all a little nervous, a little anticipating, we're going to get killed, they're going to give us a ton of things to fix, but it's for our own good, kind of. That
was May last year, so that was less than a year ago, just.
Yeah, 11 months. But it's funny that, of course, you notice with May 3 that was when it was from May 3 last year, and of course the game's coming out May 15 this year, so just over a year between the start of the internal alpha and the launch. And when they recorded that, they were thinking it was going to come out 6 months later and get it out in early December or so. So obviously a lot of changes and a lot of things had to be fixed based on internal alpha testing.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
Good thing I said it instead.
Yeah.
I might have had to talk on the podcast.
God.
I have another point here, but go ahead. Any other?
No, you've said all my points. You've taken them all.
Okay. Since that point, I made a quick list off the top of my head of major feature changes. The Mystic went away. They totally redid the crafting system about 17 times. They shelved PvP. They completely redid the skills and rune system and the interface to that, which we all like so much in the beta. So, given that they thought they were on the home stretch and in the polishing phase, that's obviously that's why it took them, 5 months longer than they hoped to, right?
And the talisman, that's gone. That's nuked, wasn't it, in the last year?
That might have been gone before that, even. I don't know. Some of the stuff is, when they announce something is gone, it's probably been gone for 6 months, so who knows when it really was.
Mind you, the Brady books, the limited edition and the normal the normal book that they have, they mention the Mystic and the PvP, so I have to wonder at what point they got their brief to write the books.
Yeah, and how much detail they can go into in terms of strategy just the skills change. We've seen numerous changes to the skills just during the beta.
Yeah.
Especially the levels of the rune effects and such. Even the current patch has got a few more of those. One of the things they had in this whole video today, talking about the regionalization, all the translation versions, and big chunks of that they were doing over a year ago. They must have had the story and the plot set a long time ago to even be able to begin translating it.
Yeah, you'd have to get that set, wouldn't you? Because so much relies on it.
Yeah, it's funny. They can change, all the game mechanics and the function of the play up till launch and afterwards. But you've got to get the story and some major chunks of things. You've got to have local dialogue people record all these things, and in Korean and Hungarian and Chinese, and a lot of the other people in other countries are often saying they don't like the translations and localizations, and they wish they could just get it in English. It seems like that's possible. Just recently in the beta, they've enabled that. You can click a switch, and you can put it in French or German or English. So maybe people who want to get the original, what the game is developed in, will be able to do that more easily with Diablo 3 than with past titles.
Did you notice in the 3 videos, because obviously they recorded at the same time, how absolutely knackered the 3 guys look, especially Jay?
Well, they weren't at the same time. They were some months apart, right? Or so they claim.
They're in the same clothes, are they not?
I think they sleep in those. Well, they said one was January, one was March,
yeah.
and one was May. They're in the official Blizzard employee uniform of, Blizzard t-shirt and jeans, generally speaking.
Jay's got.
Although Jay was in shorts, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, we always joke about over the years. So we've seen all these Jay Wilson videos before, in BlizzCon and such, and he always looks like death warmed over. And you can kind of judge the intensity of the game developing process by how close to nervous collapse Jay Wilson appears to be.
But he claims on the video that he does get 8 hours a day. So, but I question that.
Of sleep, you mean?
Sorry,
not of caffeine.
Yeah, 8 hours sleep a night. He said he gets. Looking at him, I would question whether he does.
Imagine if he got less sleep than that.
Yeah.
His temples have gone white since development began. He's on vacation right now. He's been tweeting about tropical paradise type stuff and relaxation. So the last week or so, he's been getting, I guess, probably a lot of the guys are on vacation now, kind of getting they're going to get their second wind before the big launch, and they have to get back on work and patching and everything.
Well, they probably haven't had much time off. I mean, from when we used to speak to the devs, what crunch time was like, it sounded pretty relentless.
Well, they have, sleeping bags on the floor, that kind of thing, so long hours. Of course, Jay said that's kind of counterproductive. You get so tired, you start doing the same thing over and over again. But
yeah,
that's the magic of game development. Our chance for playing is coming to an end pretty soon. They announced just today that the beta is going to be ending on May 1st.
I was very surprised, actually. It seemed a little bit, 15 days before release. I thought maybe it might be a week.
It's not. It's 2 weeks.
I know.
I hadn't really thought about it, but I guess I wasn't surprised to hear that. I figured they would want to. A lot of people have been talking about not playing for a few weeks before release to kind of cleanse their palates, like a nice dish of sorbet.
Azor said that from Diablo III Market, said a couple of months ago actually that he was going to stop about 2 weeks, and I thought that's just crazy talk. But he said that build the anticipation for him, but it looks like we're all going to be doing that now.
Yeah, we're all going to be building our anticipation for 2 weeks.
Yeah, don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, not that I'm playing every day now, obviously, because, you get overkill, but not being able to just jump on and have a play, probably get withdrawal symptoms.
Once you can't, you'll want to.
Yep.
When you can, you don't care, and it's like once it's gone, it's like, eh.
Yeah. So this will be the last patch before release.
Well, the odds seem pretty good, right? We've only got 2 weeks to go, so I can't imagine they're going to put a big change patch out.
There's so many less changes in skill changes in this patch than there was to 16, so I assume that must mean that they're fairly happy with how things are.
Well, you'd hope so. We're coming with a game coming out in 27 days. One other thing that we didn't mention was a reader. God, what was his name? I'm forgetting the name now. He made a cool thing about the melee monster range. Maurice Bastard is a forum user who made a cool movie of this. And the video, which I'm sure you'll put a clip of in here at some point, because you're clever like that, Ellie, he showed that if you run up to slow monsters like zombies, and if you get into their range, so they start to swing at you and then run back, they will still hit you, even if you're, in the Diablo scale, you could be 10, 15, 20 yards away, well out of reach, and you'll still take the hit or possibly block it or whatever. And people were wondering if that was a bug or if it was something to do with lag. And Bashiak made a reply to this video, a post about it, saying, no, that's intentional. And we do it because otherwise you could just avoid monsters that had slow hit radius, slow swing speeds. They would never touch you. Or you could just run through a huge crowd and you would never get touched once because by the time their swings came out, you'd be out of reach. And that touched off some debate. Where do you stand on this issue, Ellie?
I think it's logical. I mean, it's not realistic, but it is logical. It would be cheesy otherwise, because if you couldn't be bothered, you'd just run through a group of zombies.
And they could never touch you because they have such a slow swing that you'd be gone.
It would be too cheesy otherwise, so I can see exactly why they've done it, and okay, it's not realistic. Some people say it's a fantasy game anyway, so...
The way it looks kind of cheesy because, then you look at it and you're 15 feet away and you get hit. But, of course, we've all seen that kind of thing due to lag in past games a million times. You just kind of accept that and expect it almost occasionally. You'll get a little bit of desync or something like that.
Well, I don't know what else they could... I mean, what would they do? They'd have to give all melee-only attackers some sort of projectile so they could kind of catch you. I mean, they'd become toothless, really.
Really long arms.
Yeah, huge, big, long arms like those things that stand outside car lot. The balloon thing.
And they wave in the fan.
Yeah, they just sort of shoot out. something like that. I don't know.
On the bright side, those can type really good blue posts about game features sometimes.
Who? What?
That's my used car lot. I was tying into the used car sales.
Oh, God, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, as you say, it's just sort of what has to be done to make it function, unless you're going to make zombies hit really fast, which would also look kind of stupid, you know? It gives the Blizzard, the animators, the ability to vary the monster speeds and have them look natural and slow and shambling, while not having them just become total punching bags. I mean, I can kind of empathize with people who say it looks cheesy, but, you know, it's a functional necessity, I guess.
I think it would look far more cheesy if you could just run through them, because they would be pointless then.
The only problem that I have with those is if it still works when you use a movement skill, like, say, Vault with the Demon Hunter. And if you're next to a monster that starts to swing and then you vault, you know, the whole point in Vault is you can avoid getting hit, you know, and you're 35 yards away or whatever, and you still get hit by it if you were in range when it started. It seems like they should make exceptions for movement skills, because that's the whole point in the damn movement skill in the first place, right?
Yeah, I don't know. They didn't make any mention of what they did with that, did they?
Some of the readers in comments said they've noticed that, like when the Skeleton King does that teleportation attack and hits you when he comes out of it. Some readers said that they will do vault right when he starts to do that, and they'll still get hit by him, even if he's like a mile away when they stop the vault. But then maybe that's just a Skeleton King, and it's not so much from regular zombies. I haven't had a chance to go test that out with regular zombies. It wouldn't be real hard to find out, though, you know? Just stand near one and then vault away and see if you get hit when you're way across the screen.
Yes, I might do that and put it in the podcast. It might be playing right now.
Well, if so, edit out the last 10 words.
Or it might not be if I can't be asked to do it.
I don't think you have a Demon Hunter on your account, and it vaults like level 10, so you have to play for like 2 hours just to get that enabled, just for the video.
Yeah, well, I won't be doing that now because it's 4:20.
But Demon Hunter's fun. Oh, I should mention that I did play one game on my new computer, and honestly, I wouldn't have really known. It looked a little better. I mean, my old system was Windows XP, is about 5 years old. You know, very minimum specs for Diablo. Even it shows how forgiving their minimum specs are, because that was on an old, slow processor, and I was running I think it was a GeForce 220 GT card, which was old when I got it years ago. And I could still run the game in 1920 by 1200 on, you know, medium settings on everything. I think I actually had high on a few things even. And that ran okay. And now the new one is not state-of-the-art by any means, but it's, you know, vastly faster than my old computer was. You know, 8 gig and a much newer processor and a pretty new video card. I think it's a GeForce 5500, or 550. I hate those number things. So get these tech Nazis in the comments now, like posting like, you know, frame rate breakdowns. Fuck, this computer sucks, and here's why. It's like, yeah, great, thanks. I'm sure we'll have a PayPal button. If they want to send me another $500 to buy a better video card, I'll be happy to do it. Okay, thanks, bye. But anyway, I wouldn't really have noticed the difference. So either that's a testimony to my upgrade not being good enough, or to Blizzard's game not having powerful enough graphics engines, or to Blizzard games being very accommodating to lower system specs and still looking pretty good.
I think it's the latter.
Good choice. But yeah, I thought it looked fine. It wasn't bad at all in my previous system, and it looks a little better now. It looks a little smoother. Like, I guess I had a little higher frame rate. It looked a little more, like, realistic, or, I don't know, like, the three-dimensionality of it looked a little better, I think. I just, you know, the textures were more realistic, the details. So it looked more like a real person instead of a picture of a person or something like that.
Have you got texture on high?
I put everything on high just to see how that would look. But it wasn't much of a change from how I had it. But the frame rate, there's sliders for foreground and background, like frames per second. And I turned both those way up. And it actually was giving me some slowdown when they were both at like 200 was the max. But I think they were still considerably higher than I had it previously. I've
got the foreground on 150, but the background's on 8. I hadn't touched it. Because you were talking about it earlier. I went into my options and had a look, and so that's what it was set to automatically.
I think the background does, because I really noticed the slowdown, like when I would kill a grotesque and all those little eels would come out of him.
Yeah.
When I had them both on 200, I think the 200 on that really bogs you down unless you have just a super, super powerful machine. Because it was, you know, my frame rate was went like 1 or 2 for half a second, and then it would pop back up to 60. So I think the background is like the spell animations and the, you know, the destructibles and things on the ground like eels and worms squirming around. And maybe that adds a little bit of reality, but it's not really noticeable. Because I turned it down to 50 or something after that, and it didn't really look any different than I thought it would look. But my performance went up to normal, so...
I might have a wee test on that then. Your background isn't on 8 then?
I had them both on 200 when I was testing it.
Right.
And then I took them down to like 150 and 50, and it was playing fine on that rate.
Well, mine looks fine. It's only on 8. I'll have a yeah, it is. So I'll have to have a test.
I'll put up to 18 and see how that goes.
Ooh.
Baby steps. I'll put it on 100 and see if it slows down. And then your computer's not super new, but it's not an old piece of junk either. So it was certainly faster than mine was before I upgraded.
Well, what video card I've got? I wrote mine down. NVIDIA GTX 470, which means nothing to me. Well, I had two, actually. I got one, and then I put it in my machine, and the side was off, and I had it on the floor, and then my cat Donnie came up and pissed on it, so it's not working. So I sort of mopped it down and put it back in the box and took it back to the shop and went, it's not working. And they didn't even take it out of the box, and they changed it. I don't know why they did it.
Months later, why does the video card aisle smell like cat pee?
It's so sticky. I was just coming in the room and he was going, shaky bottom thing. Donnie! It's like, oh my God, I can't. And it was like going, turn the machine off, and it was all wet with pee. So there you go.
You're going to edit all this out of the podcast, right? Are you going to include a video for this part?
No, other people can share their antics of their cats doing things to their property if they want to.
I did get to love the joy of my new machine. I put it together myself and used my old tower case. And of course, once I opened it up and took all the sides off of it and took all the parts out, I had like a second cat worth of fur inside there.
Yeah.
Like I made a new cat. So that's always the joy of, you take your computer apart and it's like, oh, look at all the crap that I've been breathing in my lungs all year. But it's shiny. So any other last topics here?
Nope.
We have any we had the whole Diablo nut upgrade up to 16, you wanted to say.
Oh yeah, that's all up to date, up to 16 now.
And a little bit of data mining in that. We see some details that aren't in the actual game. There was a lot of itemization stuff that's visible that's not shown in the Blizzard site yet.
Yeah, Dorjan's pulled all sorts of stuff that he gets very excited about. Tiny little stats that don't show in the game or on Blizzard's site. He gets very worked up about it, and I pretend to get as excited as him about it.
Usually how it works between men and women in this world.
You know what these coders are like? They're like, oh, I figured out this, and you're like, oh, that's so exciting.
Yes. You just nod and smile and move on. You had another thing about the site you wanted to mention.
If we started doing live streams now. Obviously, we've only got a couple more weeks of being able to do that, but we'll probably do it post-release as well. KD's been putting those up, and various people have been playing. So check the news page, keep an eye on for those, because he usually puts them up during the afternoon, the news announcement of when they're going to do the live stream. And they've done various things like naked hardcore, which I think they tried on Sunday, but they all died. The Skeleton King took them all out.
Will you be taking part in the next Naked Hardcore podcast, Ellie?
Well, we were going to do some hardcore playing, weren't we?
We still are. We have time yet.
Yeah.
If they ever put this patch up tonight, then we have to build up new level 10s.
Joy.
So, any last thoughts, Ellie? We got less than 30 days to go for the Diablo 3 release.
I know, I can't believe it.
Does it seem real?
No, not really. It doesn't.
It doesn't seem real to me yet. The 30 days, I mean, we've been following this thing daily since June 2008, and possibly before then even.
Well, as you say, 29 more days. We're actually less than a month now. Less than 1 month worth of days.
Lucky, well, unless it's February, in which case it's
exactly. Stop being picky.
So pedantic.
Yes.
Okay. I guess that's all for us this week's News Attack. We'll be back next week or possibly the week after as the news continues to build, and my excitement's building as well. And if you've been listening to the Diablo podcast, this is a feature of DiabloInkGamers.com, and we are online at DiabloPodcast.com. Cheerio.
Bye.
Pip pip.